Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, and the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. It's with a capital I. Good evening. On the 8th of September, Cosmic Bard, is this thing on? In the live chat. Canada Heavy Haul, I'm all here out of spite. Mike, what's up? How you doing, buddy? Thank you for joining us. Remember, the live chat's open to you. Go to YouTube, search up SHR Media, click on the little live stream, can circle on it, you get into the chat. Mission Ready Men's here. Good evening in the chat. Tell you guys, I don't know. I'm just, this may not be, look, if foreshadowing is a thing, this may not be a great show. Anytime you have to reboot your rig a minute or two prior to going on air, it's never a good thing. And here's what happened. I had a Zoom call earlier, used my webcam like you do, and I closed it out. I know I've done this enough to know that if you use your camera the day of a show to go in and kill that program specifically, and I did. I went in, killed it, opened up the program to do the show, wouldn't find the camera, said another thing was using it. Okay, let's play this game. It's going to be fun. It's 7:56 local time. I'm going on air in 4 minutes. Yeah, let's go for a reboot. Let me pull up everything, get it all back in order, and get on the air in time to do a show. So if it doesn't go well, that's step one. Step number two, anyone who does a show, you have a routine before you go on the air. My routine was a little jumbled this week, but you have your routine. And I've talked about this before. I eat about 30 minutes before I go on the air. I make sure I set up all my tabs. I make sure that my sound is set up. I did blah, 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 right? Shit you don't really care about, but you have your routine. When something breaks out of your routine, when something kicks you out of it, the domino effect that goes with it sucks when you're trying to get on the air. There's always something. I knocked over a cup of water while I'm trying to reboot everything. I don't keep my water up on the computer. I'm not dumb. But it's over here on a side table. Knock that over. I'm trying to get tabs up. I'm trying to get my images up, my logos up, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that you do when you routine. Yeah. Cosmic Bod, you never prepare. For those who don't know, Cosmic Bod, who has our show on Sundays at 5 p.m. here on SHR Media, he is preparing shows well into 2030 just in case the Earth is still here. So when I make a joke about preparedness and then he chimes in, what he's really doing is slam dunking on me because he knows I start my show prep usually when I finish my last show. That's when I start looking for stories, looking for articles. He is talking about stuff that hasn't even happened yet somehow. He's got a show plan for stuff that hasn't occurred yet. Nobody knows it's coming. It's weird. He just somehow pulls it off. So anyhow, now I'm trying to reboot everything, and I'm, chicken with your head cut off mentality, right? Trying to get this up, that up. Tonight, instead of using paper notes, I put a PDF on my tablet to use PDF notes. So I got to find a new place on the desk for that. That jacks you up. I'm such a creature of habit that everything goes into, especially on the show, everything goes where it's supposed to be. So I had to find a space for my tablet, for my notes, and I had to work that into my program. So now I have that on top of this disaster that is going on, this disaster that is Sean every single day. And as the camera finally comes on, I'm like, sweet, that's awesome. That's great. I'm ready. And then I realize I am wearing the same t-shirt I've been wearing all day to cook in, clean in, all that. We all have the throwaway shirts, right? That's what I just wear around the house when I'm doing stuff. And now I have to pull off my headphones because I'd already put those on. I have to push back, swap my shirt. It's just so if it doesn't go well, this is why. By the way, shout out to Mike Taps, who I purchased that through. That is not, they're not, that's what I'm looking for, sponsoring the segment. They didn't give that to me. I paid for it, but it was only $20 and it sits on the end of your microphone and advertises your show, which I thought was pretty cool. That came today. So yeah, just added that 20 minutes before the show started. Oh man. Hey folks, I do want to remind everybody, and I'll try to remember to say this at the end of the show, but 9/11 is coming up. It's been 24 years since 9/11. And I just ask you to keep the people who perished in that, both 9/11s, Benghazi as well, and those events in your hearts and in your minds. You can talk about everything else after the fact, but the people that perished deserve to be remembered, and the people who suffered after the fact. I remember it like it was yesterday. Whether I should or I shouldn't, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I do. I remember where I was. I remember the whole next 72 hours because I was at work and I didn't sleep. And I remember the couple months after that. And I remember being in New York City for a law enforcement funeral with the honor guard that I was lucky enough to be a part of when they were still looking for people who perished in the attacks. So just keep that in your mind. I know it's always such a hard subject, and and then you go to Benghazi and what happened in Benghazi and the lives that were lost there, the 4 lives that were lost, and then the heroes that fought. A good friend of mine, Chris Peranto, with the team of former special operators that were protecting the CIA there. So keep everyone in your thoughts and prayers in your mind, and however you remember people, please, this is the week to remember it. So I got to transition from that to being angry, which is always fun. But I'm going to start off in North Carolina tonight with the train murder that we've all seen. I have a serious question for Democrats, and I mean it. When you see this, when you see this sort of attack, when you see monsters like this, this animal, this subhuman, this dude, he's walking around like it's nothing. He just killed the victim, Marina Saruska. I apologize if my pronunciation isn't well. And there's so much that this video alone shows that I don't think we really highlight enough in what's going on in modern society. You see how he's just strolling around afterwards. You see how he is just trying to figure out, allegedly that video, and the sound didn't do it justice, he said something to the effect of, I just killed the white girl, or I just killed a white girl, or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if race was an issue. That's something that we may never know because this dude is obviously mentally ill. But first and foremost, Democrats, when are you going to stop defending this? When are you going to stop defending violence against innocent people and making him the victim? This scumbag right here. And yeah, you know what? He might be out of his mind bonkers. He shouldn't be walking around in the streets if he is. His arrest history is unbelievable. He's got a really long arrest history. He has an obvious issue with violence. And this is when I have to transfer and try to pull up all my little segments that I have notes for. Here we go. The victim, 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who fled the Ukraine war and was trying to become a veterinary assistant. The suspect, who I am just going to call subhuman number 1, homeless, diagnosed schizophrenia per family in courts. Here's his criminal history. At least 14 arrests since 2011, armed robbery, felony assault, felony larceny, shoplifting, and threats. His armed robbery case, he served 5 years of release in 2020. Late 2020, arrested for assaulting his sister. After release, domestic violence. January 2025, arrested for misuse of 911 after delusional calls. Released without bond. Bailed and release decisions despite his violent history. Mental health gap systems. There was no officer on the train. And look, even if there was an officer down the end of the train, it may have deterred him from doing it right then, or maybe it wouldn't have. But we start to see the response to stories like this. And immediately you have idiots like, where is he? Where is Mr. Potato Head himself? I got him somewhere. Yeah. This is the conversation.
This one's garnered attention for a couple.
Focus on. It's amazing to me. You just had this girl's light extinguished by a guy who should have never been on the street. He should have been locked up in a mental health facility. Everybody knew it. This is what happens when you allow the criminally insane to police themselves. This is what happens when you're soft on crime. Oh, well, you know, he's guilty by reason of insanity. Okay, so what? That doesn't mean he should be walking around the streets looking for another victim. That doesn't mean to him himself walking around the streets unable to control himself and potentially harm himself. It's unbelievable what you will continue to defend, Democrats. It blows my mind how you don't want this. The Penny case out of New York City was front page news for weeks for stopping an insane person from threatening other people on the train. The guy passed during the incident. It was weeks. Racism and murder on the train and vigilantism and blah, 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 blah. This story barely got kickstarted, and it was social media that got it going. There was some local reports, but it didn't get national attention until social media picked up on it by design. That is by fucking design. They don't want you to hear stories about this because to them, it's actually what's funny is they don't want you to hear the story because it's a black male suspect and a white female victim, and that looks bad for Democrats. That's what most people think. I don't think it's that. I know it is to a point. It's the media. Obviously, they play up racism and victimhood and yada, yada, yada. But what they don't want is to expose, especially going into a midterm, which I believe Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, is going into their primaries tomorrow. I think. I'm not 100% on that. But they don't want to show that they're soft on crime policies. They're soft on mental health policies. This ridiculousness. It blows my mind how Democrats are the biggest fan of nanny states until certain people actually need to be controlled by the state. And then they want no fucking part of it. None. I'll let them walk around. This girl, yeah. And where's all the blue and yellow flags? Why aren't you fucking pissed? Oh, right. Because it's your party. Because the message didn't go out. We should be angry about this. And how does mainstream media respond?
couple of reasons. Number one, first and foremost, the recent release of that gruesome video. Second, the energy from pro-Trump activists. They picked up on this video from local news and ran with it.
No, they didn't run with it. They exposed it. You fucking pile of meat. And you're just mad that they expose it. And now CNN has to go on and try to defend it.
It's a little bit like the times when civil rights groups have raised attention about police-involved shootings. In this case, it is Trump-aligned.
No. The media raises police-involved shootings. You're the ones who highlight everything and throw it out everywhere and throw your little undertones in and decide, oh, and I don't know, edit 911 calls. Edit video, mostly peaceful protests. That's you assholes.
Influencers who are posting up a storm about this case on social media. Really, over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. We heard President Trump.
Because it is. It is. It exposes everything that we talk about when we talk about law and order in this country. We talk about how you should be safe in this country. It is a politician's job from the president on down. Your number one job is to protect people. And what you've made your number one job is to get votes by pandering. And that's all this is pandering. Soft on crime, pandering. Letting people out of jail early, pandering. Making suspects into victims like fucking potato heads doing right here, pandering. It's all about votes, power, and control. They don't care. This is just like the illegal immigrants. They don't care about any of those people. They care about the votes that those people can get them, from politicians, leftist media, all the way down. They don't give a shit. You know, it's funny. When they brought up all the things to start the soft on crime policies and the Soros DAs, they talk about how crime or how law enforcement targeted blacks and minorities disproportionately and how it was unfair. Well, I'll tell you right now, how many black and minority people with serious mental health issues are being treated disproportionately because you're letting them just out to wander around in front of trains, cars, getting themselves hurt, getting themselves in incidents where they end up getting hurt, for the police to have to respond and deal with them out on the street, and they're sitting there with a knife in their hand screaming to people that aren't there and then charge the cops. How about emboldening criminals? Hey, nothing's going to happen to you. Don't worry about it. Just do what you want. You'll get a slap on the wrist and be out. And now they're more emboldened. And it's not just criminals of color. It's criminals of everything. But you want to make this of color. You want to make this whole dissertation that Potato Head's given is to try to make this, there's racial undertones, right? That's what he's trying to make this. This is only popular because he's black and she's white. No, this is only popular because it is a fucking tragedy. And once again, nobody was going to do a goddamn thing about it. It was just going to go away. And I'll tell you right now, cities, big cities, it's only gotten worse. Yeah, there's some times that they've turned it around. There's sometimes that they've started to bring it back a little bit. But overall, it's still a fucking disaster in big cities. And I don't care how red the state is. When you get into a blue city, a blue county like Chicago, where you have Democrat DAs, soft on crime DAs, Democrat liberal police chiefs, Democrat mayors who are telling the police chiefs to let certain things go, when you have ADAs who are kicking shit out left and right and not prosecuting half the stuff, you get this as a society. When they're locking up people who are mentally ill, you get this as a society. And yes, there are some people who are mentally ill who should not be walking around for their safety and the safety of others in public. This is not a new conversation. I've been saying this for the last year on this show. By the way, this week is my 1-year anniversary, I believe, of this show. I and others have been saying it on SHR. I know they've said it on KLRN, who's simulcasting this. Thank you so much, KLRN, our wonderful partners over there. Check them out. But this isn't a new thing. It's not just like suddenly, oh yeah, shit, well now we have a mental health crisis. No, COVID just made it worse. And COVID made it worse, I'll tell you why, because so many people, after the first initial lockdowns, you had domestic violence and robberies and burglaries and all that other stuff. And then people were working from home. Kids weren't in school. Everyone's out in the street, and the violence went up. Why did the violence go up? Because there's more targets of opportunity. Right? Soft on crime. And it's not getting any better. This is the mayor of North Carolina who was finally forced to respond. She wasn't going to respond. This is her letter to the Charlotte community. As I reflect on the tragic murder of Inya Zarutska, my heart continues to go out to her family and our community as we make sense of this horrific, senseless loss. Over the past several weeks, our community has worked to understand this. What we know is this is dated today. The incident happened, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago? What we know is that a tragic failure by the courts and magistrates. Oh, they're starting to eat their own, folks. Starting to eat their own. Now it's not her problem. Now it's the courts and magistrates, right? Our police officers arrest people only to have them quickly released, which undermines our ability to protect our community and ensure blah, 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 blah. Bullshit statement that I had to make because I'm a politician. Elections are starting tomorrow. And I got called out on a story that we hoped would go away. That's what that is, plain and simple. That's the easiest answer for you right there. Oh, by the way, in case you were wondering, yes, the district attorney in Charlotte is a screaming liberal. And
by more than 1,000.
We would have started to learn our lessons by now. You would think as cities we would start to learn our lessons by now, but we're not. Because you have people like this, who the left is hailing as a hero.
The jail population of Rikers has increased since Eric Adams has come into office by more than 1,000 additional incarcerated New Yorkers. And what is quite staggering to me is that we know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000. I mean, Vital City had an article about a number of different proposals that could reduce it to 3,700. And
let them free.
Some of this also just has to look at the average stay on Rikers in the 90s was 50 days. Now it's more than 100. There are more than 1,500 people on Rikers who have been held there for more than a year. So I do think many of the reforms that have to be made are also reforms around the court system and ensuring that people are actually having speedy.
Yeah.
The jail population of Rikers
by the way,
has increased since Eric Adams.
It's increased for a reason there, stud. Because before Eric Adams, they let them all out again. Remember that blowhard who was the mayor before Eric Adams, de Blasio? Yeah, he let them all out. That's why the numbers went up. He fails to mention that. And if I recall, with this in the news in Charlotte there, Zoran, wasn't New York kind of infamous for issues on their trains besides Daniel Penny? Wasn't there a litany of mental health lunatics pushing people in front of trains, beating the bag out of people on trains, but just let them all out? Let everyone out on bail. Don't ever hold anybody, no matter how dangerous they are, and then see what happens. And there's like 5 stories in the news this week of violent offenders who got out and murdered somebody. I don't even have them all stacked up here because they're everywhere. I don't even have to share them. You can just go find them. There's another one out of Chicago. There was another one out of Louisiana. It's ridiculous. And they won't change direction. They'll blame each other. That's my favorite about that mayor blaming the district attorney when they probably hang out all the time, right? They're all on the same page. The judge who released him, by the way, is the board of like an early release parole program where that organization, the nonprofit, gets money from the state to help parolees get back on the feet. How do I know that she's not paroling people into her own program to stop? I don't know that. Seems like a conflict of interest, right? If you're a judge and you're sitting on the board actively for an early release program that's a nonprofit. That seems weird. But they never talk about that. They don't look, they want to make this about race. I don't even think this is always, I mean, it might be, I don't know, but I don't think this is necessarily a racial thing. I think this is a crime thing. This is a mental health thing. This is something that has been going on for a long time. And then when Trump starts talking about securing cities and you start looking at all these blue cities that have massive crime problems, Chicago specifically, DC, Baltimore. Well, he's only doing this because the mayors there are black. No, he's doing this because crime is out of control there because the Democratic policy for years has allowed this because they're blue cities. They're blue counties. They're liberals. And they actually let this happen. And they're going to come out and say all this bullshit. All of this bullshit to try to say it's anything but that. But it's that. That's all it is. Soft on crime policies. The Dems hate broken windows. Yeah. No shit, Mike. But then their little defenders, their little protectors are going to come out and go on the media and blame conservatives, Trump people on social media. You know, they're really the bad guys here. The ones that are talking about this and making the country know about it, that a refugee from a war zone that came here to flee a war zone was murdered by somebody with mental health problems for just sitting on the train. It was totally unprovoked. He just pulled out his knife and stabbed her in the throat. How dare those conservatives on social media talk about that? How dare they bring that up? They must be racist. No, it's not racism. Oh, yeah. Big E. Here it is right here. Crime is always society's fault. It's amazing. No, nobody's held accountable individually. Nobody is. Not the parents who are raising kids that have absolutely no respect for human life, law, or our society. Not the courts, not the school systems who are encouraging them. It's okay to do shit. Reparations, right? You're a victim. You've been a victim your whole life. You're just too stupid to know that. So I'm telling you, you are now. Go out and act on it. Have some mostly peaceful protests. Right? Then they get arrested and they get in a fucking city where they're out before the ink is dry. Then they get for no bail whatsoever. Or if there is bail, people like Kamala Harris's friends will bail you out and she'll donate to it, right? But then you go in front of a judge and you should be doing 60, 90 days, sometimes even more. You go, shit, this is only your 24th arrest. Go at it, son. Go get him. You're the victim here. You're really the victim here. That guy should have given up his wallet. You deserve his wallet. That's pretty much your money. And the sad part is there is a large part of society that thinks that's okay. And how do we know that? Well, a poll was done, and Senator Kennedy, John Kennedy, really talked about it today. Today, a whopping 66% of Democrats have a positive opinion of socialism. There's a direct result of young people not learning about the atrocities of socialist governments committed. They are being convinced by socialists and people that want power, that want you to have nothing, and government to have control over every ounce of your fucking life, that everything else but that is wrong. And they don't talk about the problems with it. And if you think crime's bad now, wait till everybody is poor and not just some people. And that's what's going to happen. You'll have literally have two classes. You'll have the leadership and the poor. And that's how it works. Look at Venezuela. Speaking of Venezuela, it's only got a couple minutes left before I go to the break. Eric Adams says he's protecting New York City by putting in Rikers. Yeah, and Mike, you're right. He actually started. Look, I don't agree with a lot of things Eric Adams did, but he saw the political writing on the wall. I don't think he was doing it because he thought it was right. I think he saw the political writing on the wall where he said, we start putting people in jail, or this is really going to fuck me up in the future. Because Eric Adams used to have ambitions of higher government. He doesn't anymore because he was exposed. So 2 minutes left. Department of War of Venezuela. The Pentagon, which is now officially renamed the Department of War, is moving serious firepower into the Caribbean. F-35s are now in the region in Puerto Rico. 2 USS Iwo Jima amphibious ships groups are on station as well. And Washington's already carried out a lethal strike, as we all saw. Caracas is calling for invasion prep while Washington insists it's counter narcotics, which I believe it is. But Trump said this the other day, and some people made, do I have time to show this? I think I have time to show it. Where is it? Trump said this, and people are trying to make a much bigger deal out of it than what it is. And this is one of those things that Trump already knows what this is. He doesn't have to talk. He doesn't even have to say this because this is the standing order for any vessel in international waters.
Say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want. Okay. If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you can, you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do.
Which is great, I think, for the troops and the morale of saying, hey, you defend yourselves any way you can. But that's already been kind of a standing order for, I don't know, decades, right? Where if you're operating in international waters and somebody's acting in an unsafe and or threatening manner and you have to shoot, then you shoot. So he's not telling them to go out and start fighting with Venezuela, because Venezuela, I believe, over the weekend flew 2 of their airplanes, fighter jets, past one of our ships. But that's not anything new. That's a standing order, I think, for almost the entire Navy. Shit, bottom of the hour. I got to take a break. Thank you for everyone who's in chat. Appreciating you very much. If you want to be in chat, go to YouTube, live chat on Monday and Wednesday nights. If you listen to the podcast, 8 p.m. Pacific. Thank you to our friends at KLRN for simulcasting. This is The Edge of Liberty. We'll be back right after this.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Hey, welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHI Media Network. That's an I spelled with an I. Oh, man, I have a couple things. What do I want to pick? Let's go to Europe first. I have an update for a video from Professor Peter St. Orange, who's an economist, because everyone's making a big deal about the jobs report, and I understand there's a certain level of concern with the jobs report, but we'll talk about that here shortly. So what the hell's going on in Europe? This is really interesting to me because I said before, I don't always pay attention to Europe or talk about it on the show because we have our own problems. We have our own problems. but sometimes things pop up that you just can't, you have to deal with, right? So, first of all, over the weekend, France ordered their hospitals to prepare for war. I don't think that's a regular everyday, like every couple of months. Oh, yeah, by the way, hey guys, make sure you have Le Hospital ready for as they say, shit tons of casualties. Though, admittedly, in Paris right now and some of France, they should already have that anyhow, but that's for the protesting. So that seemed really weird. And then their government collapsed over the weekend. Non-confidence vote and the prime minister collapsed. So who knows how that's going to work out. And then while all that's going on, oh, by the way, that health order, the Ministry Health Directive, by March 26, 2026, hospitals must be ready to 10,000 to 50,000 soldier casualties over 10 to 180 days. I'll read that again because I did not read that well. The order given in France is that by March 2026, hospitals must be ready for 10 to 50,000 soldier casualties over 10 to 180 days. That's pretty extreme. That's really extreme. And they're talking about just logistics. They're talking about equipment. They're talking about preparation. They're talking about emergency recall systems, all the things you need for a mass casualty incident. And they have a date of March on that. Now, could this be, look, this is directly tied to Ukraine. That's not hard to figure out, right? Who else would France be going to war with? They've been war hawking like crazy about Russia. So I don't know if this is posturing, like kind of like we are in Venezuela. Look, we're going after narco terrorists, but we're posturing a little bit. We're saying, hey, we're here. You better clean up your shit. Or as soon as they get released, we're going to clean it up for you. So that's interesting. And then on September 7th at 3 p.m., the second ever test of the UK National Alert System was done. Which, second ever. Just a couple days after France was talking about hospitals. Phones all over UK emitted siren-like tones. You've all heard that. Prime Minister Starmer says tests ensures readiness for national emergencies. And then today, as I said earlier, Prime Minister Francois Bayrou and a minority government were ousted after losing 364 to 194 in a confidence vote. It was triggered by a $44 billion austerity budget proposal. This marks the fourth time in 2 years that the Prime Minister was bounced. And Macron has to appoint the 5th PM within days. So there's a lot of weird shit going on in Europe right now. There has been for a long time. And look, both Keir Starmer and Macron have their own domestic issues that they're dealing with, mostly with immigration and a borderline civil war within their own countries, respectively. If you've followed any sort of news out of the UK recently, you know there's a lot of issues going on with all the migrants that they've allowed in. They also, as a result, have been arresting people for making comments about said migrants that were let in. But they aren't arresting migrants or giving them any real crime or penalties, just the ones who want to talk about it, because that is democracy, isn't it? When you can't even comment. And it's just going to be interesting to see, like Cosmic Bard said in the chat, peacocks have to show their feathers sometimes. Yeah, no, I agree. It could very well be posturing. It could very well be trying to put pressure on Putin with what's going on in Ukraine, because there hasn't been a lot of movement. Russia launched a bunch of attacks over the weekend on Kiev. And look, I'll still say it's a tragedy what's going on, but you know what? If Europe is going to finally step up and do something about it, awesome. I don't think they will. I think, like Cosmic Bard said, this is all posturing. This is all peacocking. This is all bullshit. But I wish they would do something about it, because they're right there. They could solve this a lot quicker. Stop waiting for us to try to do something and then jump on our coattails. It's look, Russia. I said this before when I talked about this the last time I talked about Ukraine. Russia is not the military juggernaut that everybody wants to pretend they are, and it's showing. It is absolutely showing. As a matter of fact, I really think France could beat Russia. They have nukes to hold off their nukes, and I think France actually has enough military prowess to be able to pull it off. Look, Russia has shown to be a paper tiger. Outside of Putin's chest pounding, they can't roll over Ukraine when they already had half the country with the Donbass and Crimea. And they still can't win. Some people say that's by design. I don't know. Could be. But the simple fact of the matter is they keep throwing their troops into the meat grinder. And I said before, I don't like Zelensky, but I respect the troops in Ukraine, because if people were invading our country, I would hope that we would do the same thing, especially a potentially much larger force. Fight as hard as you can and make inroads and kick their asses out of the country. That's their fight. I hope they win that fight. Russia is not our problem in that fight. Europe's problem, maybe. And I've said that from the beginning. You know, I've always felt for the Ukrainian people having to go through this. But you know what? As I said a couple weeks ago on the show, there are a bunch of other countries whose people are suffering less left and right. What about Somalia? What's it, Chad? It's another one where there's a huge civil war going on. South Africa. I mean, it's going on all over the place. Myanmar, Bangladesh. There are troubles all over the world. But this one gets highlighted because Russia's involved. A little hint, Russia's involved in a lot of the other ones too. It's not exactly it's not exactly a big secret. So why did Ukraine get such a view that all of this is such a big deal? There's only one thing I'm concerned with about regarding Europe. Cosmic Bar in the chat. Go ahead, hit me with it. How Santa Maria is, and does she need company? and Georgia Merloni. She might need, she just might need like an aide, someone to help her as well. Oh, that's why I love having Cosmic Bar in the chat. He always adds something very important, very poignant, very pointed to the conversation. So let's talk about, we got 20 minutes left, 19 minutes left. You know what? Let's play Professor St. Ange now. And you can check him out. All of his, he's on X, and all of his contacts are right there as well. But go ahead and check out Professor St. Ange. I'll be right back.
Jobs are crashing with employment levels down 600,000 since January, according to the BLS. Now, there's mostly interest rates, but dig down and it's not nearly as bad as it looks. Assuming the job numbers are true, this is the BLS. That's the weakest year-to-date for jobs since the 2008 financial crisis. While Donald Trump blames the Fed for strangling interest rates, mainstream media is, of course, blaming Trump. For the Associated Press, it's, quote, economic uncertainty driven by Trump's policies. CNN says it's uncertainty plus tariffs. The Guardian blamed Trump and AI. But there's a much bigger factor driving the jobs numbers: deportations. According to BLS, the immigrant labor force has fallen by 1.25 million in the 6 months since Trump took office. That's over 200,000 per month. Census estimates the foreign-born population fell 1.9 million, which is 300,000 per month. Now, some of this was deportations, but most was self-deportations, people leaving so they don't end up in Alligator Alcatraz. Now, this is in line with previous mass deportations under Eisenhower and FDR, where 8 to 10 illegals leave voluntarily for every one forcibly deported. It also means if you lost 1.25 million foreign workers, but only 600,000 employed persons, it's actually a 600,000 job gain for Americans, which puts jobs right in line with the average since 2000. So it looks like we're losing jobs, but actually we're losing population. Smaller country, fewer jobs. To illustrate, we've seen a string of warnings from companies catering to Hispanic consumers like Modelo or Goya, who won't put it in words, but apparently we're getting a lot of their sales from illegals. Now, combine a shrinking population with the fact we've also laid off over 100,000 federal workers, plus maybe 50,000 in taxpayer-funded NGOs, and it suggests underlying job growth is actually substantially higher than it's been since 2000. In other words, jobs would be a lot better with rate cuts. We had 2 million per year in Trump's first term before COVID, but they're still surprisingly good even with the rates. Note, deportation and federal layoffs feed to the other big economic numbers. So GDP has been weak all year, just over 1%, while University of Michigan's widely cited consumer sentiment has also been weak all year. Now, both automatically fall with deportations and federal layoffs since GDP bizarrely counts migrant welfare and government waste as production, while both migrants and federal workers, of course, buy stuff. They are consumers. So jobs are down, GDP is down, consumer spending is down, and a lot of it is actually good for American workers. So what's next, brought to you by I Trust Capital. Fake or not, weak jobs will push the Fed to cut rates. Prediction market Kalshi is now running 97% odds of a rate cut this month. Chicago Merck's FedWatch puts odds of a jumbo half-point cut this month at 12%, which is up from 0% a week ago. That means deportations and federal layoffs could finally give Trump what he's been pounding the table for 6 months, rate cuts. And if the Fed finally takes its boot off the neck, we could get a proper boom like Trump's first term. If you like podcasts, listen to all last week's videos in 20 minutes. Search Peter St. Onge on all the major platforms. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
Thank you, Professor St. Onge. Appreciate you. Great guy. Talked to him in DMs quite a bit. I met him once. He is actually, I mean, obviously he's smart, but when you meet him in person, you realize just how, well, maybe I just realized just how dumb I am. Maybe that's what it comes back down to. But we're back here on the Edge of Liberty. So let's go. Where are my little chatters? There you are. Just double checking on you. Let's talk about a couple different things that happened. Today, SCOTUS overturned the federal court judge's ruling that Trump could not unleash ICE essentially in the LA area. So that's been overturned and said, no, yeah, you can. Believe it or not, the federal and government is allowed to enforce immigration. It's the most bizarre thing in the world. I know this is a shock to all the liberals who listen to everything MSNBC tells them, but the federal government is allowed to enforce immigration, and that includes deportation. Yeah. It's just so mind-boggling that this should, and it goes back to activist judges. I know it does. I know it's all these judges who are trying to twist laws. They know it's going to get overturned. This is all kabuki theater, as BZ says. This is all a show. They know it's legal. They know ICE and Homeland Security has the authority legally to enforce our borders and deport people. And they know it so well, they never said shit when Biden or Obama did it. But now they do because Orange Man bad, right? That's what it comes down to. If you're not sure about something, legal, not legal, factual, not factual, when it comes to politics, when it comes to government, just ask yourself this one question. At the end of the day, is the person telling you this automatically going to say Orange Man bad? And if they are, there's probably a shitload of evidence for you to refute what they're telling you that is actual evidence and not just emotions. Speaking of emotions, they're about to go through the roof. Trump's weighing deploying the Guard to Chicago under Title 10 or Title 32. Obviously, J.D. Pritzker would never, ever request it, so it'll be a federal-state conflict. Planning docs list Chicago's southwest side, which is like a demilitarized zone, as I talked about Chicago 2 weeks ago. Remember, they just have one less deaths per day than Mogadishu. They're also turning Naval Station Great Lakes into a temporary ICE detention site. From what I understand, ICE is already starting to work in the Chicago area, and they're starting to make some arrests. They can allegedly house up to 5,000 detainees. The Navy's, it won't last. They're reluctant due to civilian-military overlap. But look, we have done this so many times. Do you remember, what was it, Nantucket 4 years ago? You remember seeing all the white people happy the day that the brown people left? When the Florida governor there, DeSantis, flew them some illegals that were being brought in, and then they had a shit fit and called the Coast Guard and the military and the state police, and everybody came out, immediately swooped up as they remember the woman waving. God, I hate that picture. I hate that woman. Just, so we did so much for you. You had a tuna casserole, and now you're going to go live at Otis Air Force Base for a while, which is where they were brought to under the Biden administration. And they stayed. They were in a fenced-off area, but they were living in barracks that were meant for airmen and soldiers. So that's not a conflict because it's not a conflict. So at the end of the day, I love, if you haven't gone onto social media and started looking up all of these thugs living into Chicago, warning the National Guard not to show up, what are you going to do? You're not going to do shit. You're not going to do shit. You're going to do exactly what's happening in D.C. Crime's down in D.C. Streets are safer in D.C. We see videos from residents all the time. Glad. You see videos from residents in Chicago begging for Trump to send the National Guard so their kids don't get shot at a park playing basketball twice a day. Right? And all these thugs, Trump better not send them to D.C. or what? What? Or Chicago, rather. You're not going to do shit. Because I'll tell you something. The first time one of you guys takes a pot shot of them or federal agents, it's a federal crime, and the law changes significantly. And I'll tell you right now, just if the National Guard's going to come get you because you shot at them, you better believe they're probably going to bring an ass kicking with them. So yeah, choose wisely. Go ahead, run your mouth. That's all you're doing. You're running your mouth. You ain't going to do shit about it, and everybody knows. Let's see. What else was I going to talk about tonight? I had so much to talk about. This was, I think, yesterday, and I know we talked about Charlotte earlier. I'm going to circle back to it. Jamie Raskin, who is absolutely my favorite actor right now in the Democratic Party, and I say that because all he does is hurt his own party. He thinks he's smart. He's trying to be off the cuff and trying to seem like he's tough. By the way, he's 5'2", 140 something pounds, soaking wet. I'm not in the world's best shape, but I'm pretty sure that I would be okay toe to toe with Jamie Raskin. He's like Eric Swalwell. He's just been trying to talk tough lately to make himself look cool. He said this, I think it was yesterday or the day before, or Friday.
We'll also get the chance with the new select subcommittee to examine the constantly growing criminal records of all of the violent felons and cop beaters and white nationalists who Donald Trump pardoned and released onto our streets on day one. And they've been picked up on all kinds of crimes.
Still going on January 6th. And yeah, you know what, Jamie? Maybe they have been arrested since then. But how many of them are going to be ridiculous violations of probation, or maybe like a DUI, or, how come their mental health's not being considered, seeing how many of them were held without trial for an extended period of time and then had the book thrown at them for the equivalent of federal trespassing? If you're going to make certain people victims, you're going to make everyone victims, right? You can't just go out and say, oh, these groups of victims or these groups of criminals okay, but these ones aren't. No. Same bullshit flies. You wonder why liberals and Democrats have the approval rating of herpes right now. I do have a good story. This is from the Washington Times. Where are you? There you are. Share this. Boom, look at that. Feds arrest hundreds of Sinaloa cartel members, seize drugs and guns in nationwide crackdown. The DEA on Monday said its officers arrested hundreds of cartel members, Sinaloa, seized hordes of guns and drugs during a week-long operation targeting the powerful crime syndicate. Outstanding. Federal officials said they handcuffed 617 people with ties to the cartel in the nationwide crackdown from the 25th to the 29th of August. That number is astronomical to me. 617 people were cuffed with ties to the cartel in this country. And when I talk about the narco-terrorism and the cartel being a direct threat to American people, look at how many, and that's just the ones that were caught. There's probably times two that weren't caught or weren't caught up in this particular sweep. It's scary. We've been invaded by narco terrorists. They're here. They need to be absolutely removed post haste with absolute prejudice while doing so. Agents further confiscated 480 kilograms of fentanyl. No, think about how many thousands of Americans' lives that saved during the mission. They were trafficked into the U.S. by Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation cartels, which is large, and as we all know, fentanyl is largely responsible for the overdose deaths in America. Just go drive through the streets of San Francisco, and you can see it in real time if you want to, or in Sacramento, or in L.A., or in Chicago, or Philadelphia, or Boston, or New York, or Baltimore, or D.C. Well, maybe not D.C. as much now. Probably in Charlotte as well. Then you go into the middle of the country, St. Louis. There's some other cities that the fentanyl addiction is ridiculous. The open borders allowed more fentanyl to run across. They allowed more cartel members and traffickers to enter the country and move all of this fentanyl that is killing hundreds of thousands of people. You know, they talk about all these crises. Oh, this is a crisis and that's a crisis and we're having this crisis. And they mentioned fentanyl a few times. Biden started to mention it more when he realized he was getting his ass kicked before he dropped out in the election. But fentanyl is a bigger crisis for America than Russia invading Ukraine. It is killing more American citizens than we can even keep numbers at sometimes. Hundreds of thousands. Literally part of an entire generation gone. And they're just like, this was treated as nothing under the Biden administration. Now, they made some arrests here and there, ones that they pretty much couldn't ignore. But there was no massive operations like this on a regular basis. And I hope this becomes a regular thing. So good work by DEA. Not always a fan, but in this case, you seem to have done really, really well. And I'm not a fan because of how they were operated, not what they were doing. They have a hard job, the agents on the ground. They're usually pretty decent. It's the administration for years that was problematic over there at the DEA and ATF, specifically the ATF. That's a whole other show. So Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is down in Puerto Rico. I know we mentioned that with Venezuela earlier. By the way, I did a whole thing just out of curiosity. Because when we talk about Venezuela, I didn't talk about it enough, and I have a couple minutes left, and now I'm going to. I asked AI, a couple different versions of AI, is there any way in direct conflict, because I see all these people talking about how Venezuela is going to kick America's ass and the Marines are in trouble and blow. Is there any way, no matter what happens, that Venezuela could kick America's ass in a direct static war? And all of them said decisively, the U.S. wins in a conventional fight, hands down. So, as part of the operation in the Caribbean and the Atlantic to stem the amount of drugs that are coming into this country, that is leading to this conflict that everyone says is going to be a Venezuela war, and we're getting into another war, which we're not. Now Secretary of War Pete Hegseth went down, sent a message out to everybody serving down there. And this is, I'll tell you right now, when you're looking for your leader to give you a boost, stuff like this goes a long way.
To the sailors and Marines of the Iwo Jima, Godspeed. It's an honor to be aboard with you today. You are an incredible representation of America and American power. You're trained, you're prepared, you're ready, and you're lethal. And the American people are counting on you to ensure the American homeland is kept safe. So I charge you, it's not if, it's when. You're on mission. Narco-terrorists and drug traffickers are on notice. We will no longer allow the poisoning of the American people. And the full power of the American military, used precisely with a clear mission, will be used to ensure the American people are kept safe.
That's pretty awesome. Like I said, I like the Department of War being what it is, because it was once the Department of War, because that's their job. Their job is not defense. Their job is war, either defense or offense if for some ever, God forbid, reason, we need it. That's their job, is war. The military's job is war. That's job number one for them. Whether liberals like it or not, that's the reality. And they are war fighters. That is what the military members do. Couple chats before we go. Big E says, no way. I'm going to say yes, way, because I don't remember when you commented that and what it was for. So I'm going to say yes, just to disagree with you, because it's fun. Cosmic Bard, even fully drunk, the U.S. would win. Wait, they might actually be more readily if they were actually drunk. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, the last thing Venezuela would want is a couple thousand loaded Marines just hammered out of their minds, showing up pissed off. But we will see how that turns out. Speaking of seeing how that turns out, you can see how my next show turns out next Wednesday, or wait, this Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, right here on the SHI Media Network, simulcast with KLRN. Speaking of KLRN, make sure you check out our friends over there. Tell the Cosmic Bard, tell Rick, tell Orty, tell all the great people, Agarican, all my friends over there. I said hello. And I thank them very, very much for their support and the simulcast. It means the world to me. For SHI, Tuesday and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast, you have the Mission Ready Men program with my friend, Big E. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, you have BZ's Berserk, Bobcat Saloon right here on SHI Media and KLRN. Mondays and Fridays, and I think he's getting closer to his return, you have the Reverb Common Sense with Jersey Joe. That is at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. And, of course, Sundays, 5 p.m. Pacific, on our YouTube, we are fortunate to have the Cosmic Bard, who just has some unbelievable shows. And it's just, I'll tell you, it is a show that you can listen to when you're settling down for the night, because it's a very calm and cool show. It gives a ton of information. It's a very intellectual show, which is why I have a hard time following it, and I have to listen to 3 or 4 times, but you should definitely check it out. That's it for me. I'll see you Wednesday night. Stay safe and have a great great couple days. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.